Welcome to the Zero Breach Zone, the ultimate podcast dedicated to safeguarding K-12 schools from cyber threats and beyond.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Phil, your co-host guiding you through the intersection of cybersecurity and education.
Each episode, Phil and I will dive into conversations that matter, breaking down the latest cybersecurity challenges that schools face.
And we're not doing it alone. We'll be bringing some experts in the field from the EdTech world and beyond for interviews, getting their take on the most pressing issues.
Plus, every episode will wrap up with a recurring segment, The Parting Tool, where we'll share a top tip or tool that you can start using immediately to stay ahead of breaches, phishing, and everything in between.
So, welcome to the show. We're thrilled to have you here with us. Let's not just listen, but let's take some action. Connect with us on LinkedIn and other socials and join the conversation. Together, we can build a strong community dedicated to protecting our schools. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Phil Hintz, and this is my co-host,
Andy Lombardo.
All right, and we are back for season 2. Can you believe it? We've already gotten one season done already, Andy?
It's wild. Feels like it's been forever.
It has been forever, yeah, but it's good to get back into a new year, a new set of challenges, new set of opportunities, a new set of threats that are out there, and cybersecurity is even more important now. I know just before the holidays, we put out our state COSIN chapter, put out a list of tech gadgets, like a shopping list if you wanted to shop for folks, but we also, when I sent that out to everybody in my district, I also sent it out with a little disclaimer saying, hey, these are the things you need to be aware of now that all these new devices are coming on. You might be getting a new gadget, and you might have to set up an account for it. So be careful of how do you set that up. And a couple good responses back from some of my staff that they appreciated the heads up on that, and then they liked some of the good choices that our state COSIN chapter put together on Christmas lists, wish items, and pretty cool tech gadgets. There's a lot of news stories that have been coming out around, but I was looking at one the other day, and the headline was, "Beware the hi, how are you text. It's a scam, and here's how it works." It talks about the fact that Americans have lost $3.5 billion to investment scams in early 2025. Here's how to avoid becoming the next victim in 2026. The key takeaways were online investment scams cost $3.5 billion. The median loss for the first half of 2025 reached $10,000. Protect yourself from these scams by knowing the warning signs. And so it gave a number of warning signs. Scam text, net over $1 billion for cyber gangs. And one tactic used by many scammers is known as the pig butchering. Have you heard of that, pig butchering?
I have, yeah. It's usually the kind of thing in my mind is still relegated to like Dateline, expose kind of things where someone has been, if you're not familiar with it, I think listeners aren't, the idea is that you have someone who is going all in on one target and trying to milk them for all they're worth. And it's, it's scary that with the ease that, attacks happen with now, that very widespread compared to historically.
Well, that's kind of what it says here. It says the criminal approaches someone through a social network or dating site and tries to foster a relationship over the course of several months. When the time feels right, the scammer convinces the target to invest in phony cryptocurrency by showing them imaginary gains. As the crook further reels in their catch, the person is asked to invest more money. In the end, the criminal runs away with the digital loot, and the victim is all the poorer for it. 13,577 reported cases, and total losses are $589 million over the first half of last year. And it basically says many scammers also use text messages to approach potential victims. Seemingly innocent greeting can easily turn into a friendly, ongoing conversation until criminal senses the right time to pull out the scam. They actually broke it down on how much money was lost on the type of scam. Social media was $589 million. 266 million through a website or an app, 151 million through a text, 37 million through email. So that means they're using more mobile ways of doing this. Phone calls are still scams through those. And that was 81 million. And then as far as dollars lost, and then online ads or pop-ups, people are still clicking on those online ads and pop-ups.
Yep.
34 million there.
I definitely say that's a felt experience. I would say I've definitely I've gotten more than a dozen of those "Hi, how are you?" text messages since Thanksgiving. So it's very continual. Speaking of holidays and the scams and everything, we also experience the phone thing where someone calls and pretends that they are a family member and says that they're in jail and they need to be bailed out. And so my mother got that call while me and my brother were in the room with her. And so she got the call from my brother that he was in jail and needed bail money wired to him immediately so he could get out. All very pervasive, very prevalent.
Did you ask him what is my brother's name? Who is my brother's keeper?
What is he accused of?
Yeah, really. Let me ask him right now. He's right here. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I pulled up my phone and I'm looking. I actually have a text at 1:00 today. It says, "Good afternoon. I saved your number, but I'm not sure if we know each other. What's your name?" And luckily, there's a nice little button on there. I have it right there. I can report as spam. Report spam. Delete and report spam. Yeah. So I hope people do that.
Yeah, that's definitely the preferred method because it's fun to engage and to play and to back and forth when it's a scammer. But the downside to that a lot of people don't realize is when you do that, you're giving them information. Hey, there is a person on the other side of this number, and gives them a target that they can focus on more later. So that's one of the things. There are tons of fun YouTube videos where they scam the scammer back and things like that. For just the regular everyday, please try to avoid engaging.
Yeah, I mean, that's for practical uses. I just did that, but usually what I'll do is I'll just swipe it already away and report it before I even open it, and hopefully that. Right. Because I'm thinking about that same type of thing too. Is if I actually look at it, which is what I just did on this one, right? But that I've given them the alert that they can try it again sometime. But that's what we're here about here at the Zero Breach Zone. We're here to educate folks about the tools that are out there and all the cybersecurity criminals that are out there that are trying to scam whatever they can. And they're getting more and more creative, more and more sophisticated, and they're just the same tools that we love, the technology tools that we love to help give efficiencies in our lives. They are giving the criminals efficiencies as well. It said in that article, look out for people trying to manipulate your trust. Phishing training doesn't stop your employees from clicking scam links. Here's why. One tactic is to ask you to invest a small amount of money and then increase that over the time. If you then withdraw your funds, they'll create barriers that prevent you from accessing your account. Don't take the bait in the first place. Watch out if they push you to an encrypted platform. Don't fall for success stories. Look out for urgent or high-pressure tactics and avoid phony trading websites. Those are the 6 big ones that they are saying that are the scams out there. If a tech tip tells you to paste code, it's a scam. Here's what's really happening. Here, they try to reel you in through a FOMO, fear of missing out, ploy before they ask you to invest your own money, or you ask them how to get in on the investment. So, has any of those happened to you or any of your staff?
Yeah, and so one thing that jogged for me is that we've started to see a prevalence of attacks where you mentioned the TikToks that allows you to copy and paste code or things like that. We've started to see where you will get a Scareware page that looks like a blue screen from Windows. And there are instructions on the page that say, oh no, your computer has crashed. To help recover it, press Windows R, then type this. Trying to walk them through executing code while thinking that they're fixing their broken problem.
So they're training them to...
Right.
That's wild. Wow. Well, speaking of training, I think you and I were talking about our good friends over at CyberNut have some new curriculum coming out. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So one of the things that they are coming out with right now is we've talked before about the importance of training students. And so how a lot of times we overlook those student accounts because either they're a closed campus or a walled garden or any number of scenarios where the students have an account, but they maybe don't receive or send email externally. And so one of the things that we see really prevalently in our environment is it's not uncommon for a compromised student account to be a target because there's an inherent trust relationship between the student account and staff accounts. And we see a lot of compromised student accounts trying to be used to leverage lateral movement to compromise staff accounts. And it really highlights that importance that there's a need for training for kids. And if schools don't do it, it's likely no one is going to do it. One of the things that CyberNut's working on rolling out is a new curriculum that's geared towards 2 different audiences at the moment, towards elementary school students and middle school, high school students.
Okay.
And basically what it is, it takes a series of modules based on common things. Like there's a module on engaging with AI safely. And there will be multiple videos for each one that's tailored to that age level. The younger grade lessons are meant to be delivered, teacher delivered, in the format of a video that the students watch, and then a short, maybe like a 2-3 minute video. And then there's a guide for the teacher to go through, walk through questions and quizzes to reinforce kind of the lessons in the story. And so those are all short, animated, quick and to the point, to try to hit that elementary school interest level and attention span. And then as it moves up to middle school and high school, the topics get similar pillars and categories, but it gets into more depth on the topics. And so really trying to hit all those groups without being a huge lift from teachers and without falling into the laps of being just embedded in the curriculum checkbox kind of compliance. So really trying to make something engaging, something quick, something easy to implement.
Yeah. And I don't think you can start too early on that. I mean, we're talking about kids having devices, holding on to devices, having too much screen time. That's a big debate right now. But they're in front of these devices at younger and younger ages, and they need to be aware that some of this stuff exists out there that I'm sure mom and dad aren't necessarily always looking over the shoulder of the student while they're engaging in the different apps or whatever platforms they're looking at. And so, there's a good chance that they can fall to a scam just like the ones we were talking about earlier, but at their level. And so we need to let them know to be street smart on the information highway, really is what I'm trying to call it. Common sense media has helped a lot with that too, but I love the fact that CyberNut is, of course, we got Chippy the Chipmunk. I've got him back here. Yeah, he's sitting right here. Comes along and helps our students understand it at their level. And then I'm sure middle school, there's a certain way to engage middle school students and high school students. So I'm sure that'll have to be differentiated too.
I was just say there's a good point you brought up in there too, like mentioning. So one of the things that the training does focus on is that it's not always going to be about a corporate account. And so there's training on your game platforms, on your social media, on things like that, giving them tips about their lessons on the too good to be true. If you get an offer for free Roblox bucks, if you do XYZ action, then it's probably too good to be true. So really, it focuses not just on those school accounts, but also on the modalities that they'll see in everyday life.
That is awesome because I have a special needs son who loves Minecraft.
Mm-hmm.
I could see him falling for that pretty quickly. Like, Dad, hey, I get extra time now on this if I do this and this. And I'm glad that they're investing in that. And that's more on the preventative side, where CyberNut has typically been, a reaction side of things. And when we get something bad, we think it's suspicious, whatever, we can react to that. Where it's more like, how do you find it ahead of time? How do you find it before it becomes even suspicious, really?
Yeah, and I'll date myself a little bit, but the first scam I fell for online was around 1998, 1999, and I fell for it was a fake Columbia House scam where, if you sign up for this, then you'll get a gift card to go with it. And 2 months later, I'm like, why haven't I received XYZ? And then why is this money missing from my bank? Yeah, it's definitely the same types of tricks are still out there. They just have evolved and gotten much better.
Yeah, I think I still owe Columbia House at least $1 or something like that somewhere around here because I've got several cassettes and I think I ended up doing their CDs for a while there, but I didn't fall for their gift card scam. So
yeah, it's fun when we have younger technicians here and we try to explain to them what Columbia House was.
Yes,
it's such a foreign concept.
Yeah. At the same time, you could talk about Blockbuster at that point. Yeah. Well, hey,
Sure.
That brings me up to something. Today, I was actually at one of our high schools, and this is not really cyber-oriented, but from a coding and technical standpoint, it's really cool. One of our computer science teachers, actually, I'll have to see if I can send some pictures to Izzy so she can put it when we post, but this is the computer teacher's last year. He's retiring this year, and he wanted to go out with a swan song, and his swan song was to program the world's largest Pong game, okay? Literally Pong. And if you don't, for those of you listeners who don't know what I'm talking about, which there was a number of teachers that came up to me, what is Pong? And I said, well, back in the 1970s, you had a paddle here and a paddle here, and you had a little blip in the middle of the screen, and you had to bounce that. It was like tennis, but it was like digital tennis. You had to bounce the ball back and forth, and if you got the ball past the opponent's paddle, then you got a point and so on. They set it up. They went to do a world record. And so they actually broke the Guinness Book of World Records today. And the world record was 400 simultaneous players of Pong on the same game. So it's not 400 different games. It's one game. where they're all, and we had it in the gym. We did it in the gym, and the computer teacher set up 2 cameras in 2 areas of the bleachers in the gym. And the students held up a card that was blue on one side and red on the other side. And they flipped it. If they wanted the panel to go up, they had it on blue. And if they wanted it to go down, they had it on red. And so they were going back and forth and back and forth. And it was so cool to see 250 red, 250 blue, and so on, and panning it back and forth. We recorded it. I actually have a video of it. We talk about dating ourselves here.
Right.
Yeah, but the students all had to code the coordinates of where people would be sitting in the bleachers so that the cameras would know where to pick up the information and how to basically translate that to where the panel belongs on the grid. And went back and forth. Wouldn't you know it, the end score, we would play till 7, and the one team had 6 and the other team had 7. So it was 6. And final score was 6.
Oh, no.
Yeah, how about it? But so appropriate. And all the kids got a good laugh after they realized that. And they're like, oh, but that's the basics of coding. And that's where a lot of this gets started. But our students coded all that and set it all up and broke a Guinness Book of World Records. What does that have to do with cybersecurity? At least the same students are in our cybersecurity classes as well, too. So that's they're seeing it from the old school and bringing that into the 21st century, if you will.
And they are the pipeline.
Yeah, they are the pipeline. So, well, I feel like this is a lot going on at the beginning of the year. Have you made any New Year's resolutions as far as cybersecurity is concerned?
Oddly, I've not created any new ones. It's more to finish all the lingering projects that I've kind of halfway. I think the closest thing I would say is we've been marching towards student MFA, and we're getting close. So we're trying to, the big balance is trying to find, especially our state is, like many states, has now banned cell phones during instructional time, during the instructional day. And there's that we can't and don't want to expect students to have their phone out any more than absolutely necessary.
Right.
And so trying to find that type of solution that won't lean on that. And so we're moving towards some more kind of certificate-based authentication things where it depends on if the student is signing in from a corporate device that has a special security certificate and things like that, it'll allow them access. And so, we've really been trying to tweak that with as much mind towards reducing friction for student experience and for, by extension, the teacher experience. And so that's really we've been making small steps to move that direction over the past year.
Yeah.
And we're getting close. I'm hopeful that by fall we'll be ready.
All right. Yeah. Similar. We are launching CyberNut for students by the end of this month, January here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Putting a timestamp on our podcast here, but yeah, we're launching that, and it couldn't come at a better time. Just before our finals last semester, we had one of our teachers who was involved with a group of students got a Google Doc that was shared with them, and they shared it out, or they clicked on it and opened it, and it automatically then shared it with a number of students that the teacher had been associated with. And broadcast, we had 300 and some students that got this email that was a shared doc that meant nothing. Fortunately, we have tools in place that we were able to revoke that and pull it out of a lot of mailboxes, but there were a couple of students that had opened it, and so we had to reset their passwords and all of that just to make sure. But talk about the tactic of doing that through a Google Doc and getting a doc that is from a known trusted source, so it came from their teacher. It wasn't coming from somebody outside on the other side of the world or something. It was from somebody they knew. So they felt, some of the things that we say, they felt that they could trust that teacher, and they could, but there were some telltale signs within the shared part of the document that you could tell that, hey, wait a minute, this wouldn't have come from my teacher. This looks weird. He's talking about the superintendent or something like that. We had to actually reset some passwords and all of that, but it's not coming through just the email anymore. It's from a shared trusted source. Wow. Well, there's no end in sight in terms of cyber criminality. And here we are. We're just at the tip of the iceberg of all the things that are going on. In our next episode, teaser, we're going to talk about some of the typical cyber threat predictions for 2026. So we'll make sure we go over that with folks and see what that looks like, because everybody makes bold predictions for the new year, and a couple of companies have done that in the cyber world. So we can go over that. So that's my teaser for next time. Mm-hmm. Until then, we will work hard to bring every school district in the country, in the world, to make them a zero
Breach.
zone. Thank you, and have a good day, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Zero Breach Zone podcast. We hope our conversation left you feeling more informed and empowered to protect our K-12 schools from cyber threats.
A big shout out to our sponsor, CyberNut, for making this podcast possible. CyberNut is committed to providing security awareness training designed for schools, helping educators and students navigate the digital world with confidence.
If you want to learn more about how CyberNut can help strengthen your school's cybersecurity defenses, head over to their website, cybernut.com, and sign up for their training program. Together, we can create a safer online environment for everyone in our educational communities.
And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Connect with us on LinkedIn to join the conversation and help us build a strong community around cybersecurity and education.
Join us next time on the Zero Breach Zone for more insightful conversations. Stay vigilant, stay ahead, and let's keep our schools a
Zero
breach
zone.